So thank you. As we mentioned in the invitation to you for today's webinar, choice has been a subject for the last 20 years or so in various markets around the country. And what we are going to do today is to cover this topic based on some research that was done by the American Coalition of Competitive Energy Suppliers, which from now on I will refer to as ACCES. That acronym was conceived and put together back in 2011 when ACCES was born for the reason that we wanted to ensure consumers had as much information as possible and, if you will, had access where they would like to energy choice. As I said, my name's Michael Meath, and from Washington, D.C., where the ACCES headquarters are. Thanks for joining. We'd like to jump right into it and talk to you about this research project that we did and the results that we came up with. We went about this a bit of a different way. But first, just a little bit of background about ACCES. ACCES is a group of competitive suppliers for natural gas and electricity, and they, in many cases, sell other energy-related products as well, who are committed to consumer education about choice and competition across the United States. I mentioned earlier they were formed about 7 years ago and today have 8 sustaining members, many of whom have been with us since the inception of the organization. And those members serve 18 states, approximately 2.5 million customers collectively. If you'd like to know more about the individual members of ACCES, you can go to our website and see them listed on the last page. Their guidance, support, and challenge to us over the years has been critical for us to be able to provide good information for consumers, policymakers, members of the media, and others. And I'll comment a little bit further about the work of ACCES as we go through this webinar. Suffice it to say that our work is primarily with regulators and legislators and consumer advocates, as well as the news media, all with the focus on education. The members of ACCES do not lobby through ACCES. ACCES does not in any way, shape, or form lobby policymakers. What we try to do is help inform everyone and get the best information we can out about energy choice. Many of you already know this, but if you look across the country, there's currently 24 states with some level of energy choice or competition, and we use those terms kind of interchangeably. This runs the full spectrum from states that have choice fully active in both gas and electricity, states like New York and Pennsylvania in the yellow here, to some states who have just one product or another. You'll notice the gray states like Texas, where electric choice only is predominant. And then you'll also see a few states where there is only gas choice. Now, the one footnote I want to make to this is that you will see a couple of states where there might be gas choice, such as Florida, which is one of the subjects of our research. And I don't want that to be misleading. Florida does, in fact, have some energy choice in the natural gas area, but as I'll comment in just a moment, you'll see that it's relatively limited. Our research was based on an independent consumer opinion survey to measure the awareness and understanding of energy choice with consumers across Ohio and Florida. And what we did was pick these 2 states for really several reasons, but 3 stick out more than others. Number one, 2 very populous states. These 2 states actually represent 10% of the population of the United States together. Secondly, they are both widely recognized as swing states. Now, as many of you know, we refer to swing states in the political process, but what we mean more by that for our purposes is that swing states are not necessarily definitively one opinion or another on certain subjects. They're constantly looked at for how they might have an influence on the rest of the country. So we thought that it would be important to look at two swing states, which is why we selected these two. And then lastly, we represented them because they have the both fully competitive in Ohio and then the non-competitive markets of Florida, which we thought was important into compare and contrast as we did our study. Our survey was conducted by Harper Polling, which is based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And this study, we chose Harper for a number of reasons. One of those reasons was because they're a national search firm in regards to survey research, and they do a lot of work in both the political arena across public policy organizations and with issue advocacy groups to help guide them with strategic planning. They also happen to be located kind of right in the middle of the choice area in the Northeast. The survey was conducted between February 1st and 5th of 2017, and we chose those dates as well. We've been working on this for many, many months, but chose those dates as well because we wanted to give consumers a break after the fall election and then still get some really good results to focus on in the calendar year of 2017. So let's kind of get right to it and look at a couple of high-level comments. First, in Florida, where a strong majority of consumers told us that they would like to see competition and innovation with obviously a balanced level of consumer protection. And that's going to be a common theme that we're going to talk about for the next few minutes. But this area of balancing the ability to choose in pretty much a wide open marketplace, but also providing some protection for consumers is important. And Florida told us strongly, 75% said that that was important to them. If we dig a little bit deeper in Florida for just a minute, you'll see this question that talked about the importance of choice in other aspects of your life. And that would be well beyond energy, things like cell phone, internet, cable, transportation, and so forth. And what you find from this slide with the 500 residential consumers that were interviewed over the phone is that nearly 75% or more, 80%, were saying that choice is extremely important or very important to them. And only a small percentage said that it was not important or they weren't sure. So that, we think, is already setting the table, if you will, for the topic at hand. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we found that in Ohio, about 68% of consumers agreed that prices that consumers pay for both natural gas and electricity are better if they're controlled by competition. And what's interesting, and when we drill down into Ohio in a couple of minutes to see, is that there's such a large portion of the residential consumers already in the state who have made the choice that this statement is pretty powerful. Now, in Ohio, when we look at this competition versus government control, what you'll see is there's our 68% who either strongly agreed or somewhat agreed that they would prefer to purchase from the competitive market and find that their prices are better off being controlled by competition than by the government. We did see some other disparity in terms of no opinion or who wasn't sure, but in general, that was an important statistic for us to reference. Here's as good as any place for me to mention that some of the statistics that were in the white paper. 50% of the residential electricity marketplace, it's about 2 million people, do purchase from competitive electricity suppliers in Ohio, and a little over 50% as well in the residential natural gas marketplace. About 1.7 million customers also purchase from competitive suppliers. You'll notice I didn't give you that statistic of any kind for Florida because Really, there is no electric choice currently in Florida, and natural gas choice is limited to just a small portion of residential customers and certain utility areas, and they get narrow, very narrow annual election periods at this time. If we go back and look at our market, one of the things and the themes that came through this was made us think about, at least, some of the terminology and the references that we've used before at ACCESS, and that is comparing the energy marketplace to the interstate highway system. And that is, imagine that there are roads all across the country that if you get on an interstate highway, let's just choose Route 95 or Route 70, that you know that the width of the road, the signage, even if the speed limit's different, the signage is going to be the same, and you know what to expect. And consumers told us through this survey that choice is important to them in all areas. And what drives the market today for them is innovation, focus on sustainability, and yes, pricing concerns. It might be that the price becomes a function of value, and as we'll see a little later, some people are willing to pay more for certain values. But customer service, along with innovation, sustainable or green options, and then how that all wraps up and finds its way to price, are the kinds of things that are driving today's market. And more on that in just a minute or two. A very good example of this that almost all of us in today's webinar are familiar with is that consumers are spending more on their mobile devices every year. I look at my own cellular phone bill and see that I am spending more and more money than I was just even a year or two ago. But I'm also getting a lot more for it, and I depend on that smartphone for literally everything. If I were to attach a keyboard to it, I could not only write memos, I could check the weather. I happen to be a pilot, so I can check the FAA on any airport I might be going to, what the current conditions are there, temporary flight restrictions that might exist, anything. We can do it all from our phones today. And so that's an important kind of touchstone for us to think about when we consider energy choice as well. Now, the survey told us that there are really four factors that are driving choices on energy products. And the price is right there. And if you do read our white paper, you'll find that price is, in fact, an important consideration. However, one of the things that surprised us even a little bit is that when you add up all of the other things besides price, things like interest in fixed-term agreements, where they might not be just 1 year, but in some cases you could get a 3-year fixed-term agreement, or maybe it's even a fixed-term agreement around a collar of a part of the winter time where prices might be more volatile. That whether it were fixed prices, the interest in renewable energy products like solar and wind and bio and so many others now that are coming online, or the efficiency market, that is, things like controls that are used to help you manage the energy purchases that you have in your home, that all of these other things actually added together were far more than the price issue. But it's important for us to remember the price issue, and we are not trying to sidestep that. From the standpoint of utility satisfaction, one of the key findings of our research was that reliability continues to be very, very high on the priority list for energy consumers. However, what these consumers told us is that while that reliability is important, they're frustrated. They're frustrated that the product choice and selection that they currently have, especially in markets like Florida where there aren't any choices, stifle the opportunity for consumers to take control of their energy purchases and to make the kind of creative choices that they might make around how they want to buy their energy, what type of energy they'd like to buy, or what kind of efficiency factors are important to them. The Public Utility Commission has an important role to play, and as you'll find in the paper, both in Ohio and in Florida, consumers recognize that important role that the Public Utility Commission or Public Service Commission in some states plays. They recognize that role and how important it is to maintain consumer protection, but they want to make sure that regulations don't stifle, don't overcome, don't limit the ability for innovative products and services to be in the marketplace. And so what we find and what we continually find at ACCESS is the need to create this balance, that there needs to be the guardrails, just going back to my interstate highway system, so that we can kind of know the width of the road and that the speed limit's going to be posted and what happens to us if we don't obey that speed limit. But that in light of that, it doesn't matter what gets put in trucks or where those trucks go, that transportation system can work that way. The unmistakable preference among consumers is that they would like to maintain or extend choice. Maintain choice is what we were told in Ohio, extend choice and have the opportunity for it in Florida. Now, if we look towards future energy policy, there's a couple of other things that we wanted to make sure we mentioned. The research confirmed for us that that there's a challenge ahead for us to meet the needs for consumers, that we need to recognize what consumers value and how they prefer that value is delivered to them. Here again, they're looking for markets to be designed that account for consumer behavior and preference while still and educating consumers about those opportunities with those technologies and competition that might exist in the marketplace. One example of that could be that programmable thermostats, house energy audits, equipment warranty programs, or even service agreements to be invoked during emergencies. Newer, higher efficiency equipment that can exist for upgrades to energy systems within the homes. All important things that need to be considered. And consumers are valuing these things when they want to see the markets get designed that provide for them. In other words, they want to drive the market. They don't want necessarily anyone, including a government agency, to dedicate or dictate, I should say, what it is that they have to purchase. They are looking for these best practices on consumer protection, and that will help ensure the reliability and provide the safety, which is provided by the utilities. And neither ACCESS nor any of the consumers that we talked to with our research said that they wanted to do away with utilities. It's that they saw that utilities role is importantly placed in the delivery and the reliability of energy, as it has been and has been their charge. And in almost every case around the country, they have done so well over the last 100 years. Lastly, those both commodity and value-added services, I can't emphasize enough that what we're finding is that consumers want to help actually create the products of the future by their own demand, not simply be told by a government agency what it is that they need to purchase. So this path forward really suggests that policymakers need to help consumers achieve their energy independence. Really three ways that came out of our research. One is to keep the energy market policy flexible and adaptable. Secondly, to allow consumers to determine markets by their own preferences, as we talked about just a minute ago. And then finally, to maintain sensible consumer protections so that they feel comfortable in the marketplace, but also feel as though they have enough choice that they can, in fact, make the moves that they would like to do. Finally, we think that it's important that stakeholders like ACCESS, who are focused on education, I have a very critical role to play to deliver this competitively neutral educational content. And even on our website, what you'll notice are things like myth versus fact, the state of the marketplace, questions that you should ask your supplier before signing up, understanding how billing will work, and so forth. There's just a few things that we keep updated on that website where we get about 1,300 unique visitors every month. So now I want to turn it over to the listeners and encourage you to tweet us your questions, to email us your questions. We've got some operators who are standing by to help. I'm just looking at one of them now. Help get those questions that we can answer for you over the next 20 minutes or so. And while I'm pulling up one of the Twitter questions, I'm going to first mention that a question came in as to what these results mean for states other than Florida and Ohio. And that's a great question. I think that what we believe these results mean for states other than Florida and Ohio is that consumers want choice, and they do understand and recognize that it's important that they have the guardrails that are around it to ensure consumer protection. But at the same time, that choice be there so that they can, in fact, make the decisions they'd like to about their energy purchases. I have a question from Twitter that asks, what about North Carolina? And there, what you'd see from our map, if we were to go back to that slide, is that there is not currently any wholesale marketplace of energy choice that's available to consumers at the residential level. However, there is renewable energy options and community solar options that are taking stronghold there. And just like many other places around the country, that is a place where you will see some movement for sure. Another question that came in was regarding the products and services that consumers might be able to take advantage of, and are they all the same in every market? And the answer to that is no, they're not. And that is one of the unique things about creating a value-added market, is it depends what consumers are sort of looking for and what individual suppliers, I see many of whom are on this call, have the ability to provide. I mentioned earlier things like programmable thermostats and warranty programs, fixed price contracts, certain levels of green energy, whether it might be a 100% green or renewable product, and in another case it might be just a 50%. So be sure to get your questions to us. Again, you can email us at info@competitiveenergy.org, or you can tweet us at Energy Access. A question came in, can I point to states that are success stories for choice? And while some of this is subjective, admittedly, I will say to you that we believe that states like Georgia, who to large measure have had success with natural gas choice, in Texas, where many of us know that the electricity market has fully opened up, Pennsylvania, which also has had pretty strong choice programs for both natural gas and electricity for almost 20 years now, and Ohio, which is one of those states that we referenced in our research. I have another question that came in, do suppliers compete with utilities? And in many states they do. One of the things that's important, we believe, for consumers to understand and for public utility commissions to support is that where utilities are still active in the marketplace, and sometimes they're considered the provider of last resort, that the competitors, those that are also selling natural gas or electricity along with so many other value-added products and services, that in some cases there may be what be considered a competition there. In other states like Texas, there is no competition to the extent that uh, sup- suppliers are there and lined up. Consumers can go and select their electricity supplier among several dozen electricity suppliers. Generally speaking, competitive suppliers, or those that are not utilities, don't like to view themselves as competing with utilities. They're simply different. Uh, they offer different things. Think of, if you will, in most utility areas, the concept that they are the Model T Ford, where you can get any color you'd like as long as it's black, where in a competitive or choice market, there's more opportunities for the consumer to choose among many different products and services that might be available. And that's the idea behind choice in its best. In fact, over time, what we think is that I was having a conversation with a reporter just the other day that we believe that the consumer is going to drive where that choice is going to come from, and then the really innovative marketers are going to be the ones that are going to be in the best position. Remind you again to send in your questions via both email as well as Twitter, and happy to take them on. I've got another question here about how can consumers get more information about choice. And the best way to get information about choice we have found is Public Utility Commission websites, consumer advocate websites. One of the things that makes ACCESS so unique is that we work side by side with and cooperate with and see the important role that consumer advocates play in helping consumers to get complete understanding. But also our ACCESS website, which is continually updated with information, both the map that I showed you at the top of the presentation as well as so many other facts and updated information about the markets can be found there. So I'm just waiting one more second, seeing if any other questions are coming in. You can always get your questions answered by email from us. And if you have any other questions, we're also going to be sending around the white paper and copies of the slides for all participants so that you'll have that information. And I'm just going to stay on here one more minute. I want to thank everybody again for your participation today. And we think that's it. So we kept this to 30 minutes. Our hope was to minimize the time online today. Thank you all for participating, and we look forward to hearing from you again.